Stray dog.
Finally, the rice pudding seller's boy became so relentless that the animal was forced to flee into an alley leading towards the tower, dragging itself with its empty stomach and barely managing to find a stream of water for refuge. It laid its head on its paws, stuck out its tongue, and watched the green fields waving in front of it in a half-sleep, half-wake state. Its body was tired, and its nerves ached. In the humid air of the waterway, a special comfort enveloped it. The various smells of half-dead grass, a single damp old shoe, the sense of dead and living objects revived distant, intertwined memories in its nostrils. Each time it focused on the greenery, its instinctual desire awakened, and the memories of the past surged anew in its mind. But this time the sensation was so strong that it seemed a voice near its ear urged it to move and leap. This was its inherited instinct, as all its ancestors had freely thrived amidst the green fields of Scotland. But its body was so battered that it would not allow the slightest movement. A painful feeling mixed with weakness and frailty gripped it. A rush of forgotten, lost emotions came to life. Earlier, it had various obligations and needs. It felt compelled to respond to its master's call, to chase away any strangers or foreign dogs from its master's house, to play with its master's child, to behave with familiar people, to act appropriately with strangers, to eat at the right time, and to expect affection at the designated moments. But now all these constraints had been lifted from its neck. Its entire focus was now on obtaining a piece of food with fear and trembling from the refuse, to be beaten and to howl all day long. This had become its only means of defense. Formerly, it had been bold, fearless, clean, and lively, but now it was timid and beaten down. Every sound it heard or anything that moved near it made it tremble. It even feared its own voice. It had completely adapted to the filth and refuse. Its body itched, and it had no patience to hunt for scraps or lick itself clean. It felt like it had become part of the garbage, and something within it had died, gone silent. Since it had fallen into this hellish valley, 2 winters had passed without a full meal, without a good sleep. Its desires and emotions had been stifled. No one had come to stroke its head. No one had looked into its eyes. Although the people here seemingly resembled its master, it seemed that their feelings, morals, and behaviors were worlds apart from its master's. It was as if the people it had previously mingled with were closer to its world, better understood its pains and feelings, and supported it more. Among the scents that reached its nostrils, the most confusing was the odor of rice pudding from the boy. It was a white liquid so reminiscent of its mother's milk, conjuring memories of its childhood. Suddenly, a state of numbness overcame it. It seemed to recall the warmth of that nourishing liquid it had suckled from its mother's breast when it was a pup, and the soft tongue that licked and cleaned its body. The strong scent it had inhaled in its mother's embrace and beside its brother revived in its nostrils. The heavy, sharp scent of its mother and her milk filled its being. As it became intoxicated with this memory, its body warmed and relaxed, and a flow of warmth coursed through all its veins. It would separate from its mother's breast feeling heavy-headed, followed by a deep sleep in which it could feel the pleasurable tremors throughout its body. What greater joy could there be than pressing its paws against its mother's teats, having the milk flow forth effortlessly, the furry body of its brother, its mother's voice. All these were filled with comfort and joy. It recalled its old wooden den and the games it played in that green garden with its brother. The floppy ears of its brother bit at it. They would tumble and rise, running together, and then it found another playmate, the son of its master, chased him down the garden, barking, biting at his clothes, especially the affections its master showed it. The treats it received from him, it would never forget, but it loved its master's son more, for he was its playmate and never hid it. Later, it lost its mother and brother, and only its master, his son, his wife, and an old servant remained. How well it recognized each of their scents and could distinguish the sound of their footsteps from afar. At mealtimes, it would circle around the table, sniffing the food, and sometimes the master's wife, despite her husband's objections, would sneak a morsel of love for it. Then the old servant would come, calling for it, pat, pat, and pouring its food into a special dish beside its wooden den. Pat's intoxication led to its misfortune, as its master would not let it go outside to chase after female dogs. One autumn day, its master, along with two others whom Pat recognized and who often visited their home, got into a car and called for Pat, seating it beside them. Pat had traveled in a car with its master several times, but that day it was intoxicated and filled with a special excitement. After a few hours of travel, they disembarked in the same square. Its master and the two others passed by this alley next to the tower, but coincidentally, the scent of a female dog, traces of the scent of the same species that Pat was searching for, suddenly drove it mad. It sniffed at various intervals and finally entered a garden through the waterway. As dusk approached, it heard its master's voice again calling, "Pat, Pat." Did it truly hear his voice? Or was it merely an echo reverberating in its ears? Although its master's voice had a peculiar effect on it, as it reminded it of all the commitments and duties it felt indebted to, a force beyond the powers of its external world had compelled it to be with the female dog. It felt as if its ears had become heavy and dull to the sounds of the outside world. Strong emotions awakened within it, and the scent of the female dog was so intense and potent that it overwhelmed its senses.